We're on what seems to be a quiet and peaceful Montana highway. Yeah, you can hear the crickets and the grasshoppers. You can hear the birds chirping. You can hear the hum of the Roadrunner. But wait, this is not just a regular highway. Roll the intro! It was a peaceful day in 1959, August 17th to be exact, and that's when the world changed. Yeah, it completely changed. But how? How, you ask? Why did it change? What was going on? How did the world change? I'm so confused. It was on this day that not so far out of Yellowstone Park, the world decided to erupt. How? Through a 7.5 magnitude earthquake, which completely changed the landscape of what we're seeing here today. It was insane, it was intense, and it was a geological nightmare. Imagine being in a campground and then all of a sudden the world erupts around me. That would just be so terrifying. My focus right now is just that I don't end up around snakes. And that's something that, you can kind of control. This you have no control over. So imagine how these people felt when their campgrounds were just swallowed up. The road was cut off. There was no way for them to escape. It was just terrifying, and 28 people perished. Wow. So, I thought that this was a fitting location for us to take the 16-mile drive down the coastline of Earthquake Lake. That's what they call it. And check out some of these viewpoints, find out a little bit more, and learn a little bit more about how Yellowstone, which we just visited, actually does affect the world around it. Some of the geothermal features were very active at the time of this earthquake and can be contributed at least a little bit to the earthquake. For this next stop, guys, we're gonna need some different shoes because I got my slides on and that's not gonna work. We need to be able to hike down this little trail just a little bit, and even though it has pavement, these slides aren't cutting it. Now, according to this checkpoint map, there are a few things that we want to check out. The first one is right here. It says sleep interrupted. Then we're going to go to a leap just in time. We're going to follow it by Grace Miller's drifting cabin, and then highway fell off into the water. So you have 4 checkpoints in a very short span. And, well, this explains a little bit more about it. But rather than reading, let's just... According to the first sign that we saw on the highway, it was a full moon, it was a quiet night, there wasn't a lot going on, and then out of nowhere came this horrific earthquake, and it shook up everything, to say the least. So now we're getting to see some many years later what the area looks like. A leap just in time down this road. This was actually the old highway, so that's why it's a little bit wider. We are walking on what used to be the main road through here before this big quake, which completely ransacked the entire area. It's really interesting. It's such a beautiful location. It's so hard to fathom. Oh guys, look at this. This entire area fell off into the water, and then this cabin was actually drifting around in the water. Let's go see how close to this that we can get. There it is, guys. That's where the highway fell off. Right there. What's interesting is today you would never know there was even a highway here. It's started to develop itself again. The lake waters have receded down just enough to make it comfortable, and well, it just looks like a mountainside, just like some of the others do. But the gruesome history of this is so different. So different. I guess let's get back on the highway and find our next checkpoint. In the aftermath of the earthquake, over 250 people were stuck, stranded in various places. They'd all fled to higher ground. And as a result of that earthquake, campgrounds around here actually have alarm systems so people will know to flee in time, which I think is awesome as a camper personally. But this is actually a stop that shows us what one of the refuge points looks like. Now at the time, there was water surrounding so many areas that they had to have people like basically drop down from the sky to be able to save these people, kind of like they had to do with Katrina. So if you go up this trail, there's a 2.3-mile loop where you can see where the refuge rendezvous point really was, and it's really interesting to check that out. Now it's a little bit later in the day and I still have a couple of stops, so we're not going to hike that 2.3 miles today, but it does show where they were actually picked up from and where they were actually assisted from, which is crazy. Side note, oh poor Roadrunner, you definitely need a bath. We have to find you a bath soon. Next stop is actually the lake itself. Now all of this that you see that is now underwater was not always that way. In fact, there was only a small portion of this area that had water. Let me show you what I'm talking about. See guys, this is what it originally looked like. It was not that bad. It looked like a little river that was going through it. And then after, you can kind of see where things changed considerably. And now this is what it looks like. Something really fascinating about Earthquake Lake, or Quake Lake as they like to call it also, is that it is actually 4 miles long and is over 120 feet deep in some places. There are accounts from people who were actually in the quake who said that they never were able to find their cars and they haven't been found since. So somewhere submerged in this vast lake are cars. Yeah, really old cars. Can you imagine 80 million tons of rock shifting? That's what happened on the day of the earthquake. And there was a campground right here in this area that was completely swallowed up. There are accounts that say they could hear the snapping of the trees, the rumbling of the rocks, and then it was almost too late. There were a few people who survived, but again, there were 28 people that were in this area who did pass away. There was no warning at the time, none. So there is a visitor center, but it closes at 5. We missed it by like 20 minutes. No big deal. There's some other things around here, so we're gonna look at them and check them out. And we're gonna do our due diligence and look up some information online and find out how we didn't know about this. At one point in time, the rock that we just looked at was all on the mountain and as a part of the mountain behind it. And then the earthquake happened, and well, that's just a portion of the debris. A lot of it's been cleaned up. That's a huge mountain of debris. And to think that there was so much more. Wow. The real question is, what does the mountain look like after? Yeah, there's been some new growth in these areas behind us, but the mountain that everything broke off of, well, I can't say the same. Let's go look. Much like the people who who were affected by this horrible disaster, the animals were also somewhat displaced. They had to adapt and be able to figure out new things. It worked out really well for the bighorn sheep and also for the mountain goats, who took right to the rocky areas and still to this day are spotted all over the place, roaming around and thriving. But the elk also had to adapt, and they did so pretty well. They found a little location kind of behind me that I'll show you now. That area actually became their migration area. I don't know why they picked that one spot, but there's a path, and if you go up to it, you can see hoof prints and where they always trot down. These are often the areas where you'll also see them come down at night to feed on the grassy areas below, which are just that way. From Earthquake Lake, I think we're going to call it a day. It has been a fascinating 16-mile journey today, and we have learned so much about the history of this area. If nothing else, I want to challenge you guys today to get out there and explore the world around you, but be safe doing it. Have a good one, guys. Bye.